Hey everybody, it is Lacey from the Content Direction Agency, and it is your 15-minute content debrief today. It is Tuesday, April 2nd, and we are going to do 15 minutes of actionable content marketing information you can use to improve your business and make more sales. And I just want to say that I'm in my downstairs office today, which is actually my dining room, but that's why we've got the lovely art and the mirror that needs to be hung. And this week, we are talking about email marketing. And we are going to be talking a little bit about welcome sequences today. So how to use an email welcome sequence to get more clients and to help get people excited about working with you and move them closer towards a sale. So last week, if you watched the video, I can pop a link into the comments later. But if you watched our video last week, I was talking about how your email marketing is really a function of moving people from where they are on the customer awareness spectrum to the next level, right? So we want to make sure that we are taking them from wherever they are when they come in to the very next step. Because if we're trying to take them all the way across, we're going to lose a whole lot of people in the process. My favorite metaphor for this is, hi Jan, thanks for coming. My favorite metaphor for the customer perspective, hey Jamie, is to talk about a river with rocks in it. And each piece of content in your content marketing plan is a rock in the river, right? So imagine your customers are on one side of the river and a sale is on the other side. And every piece of content you put in is a rock in the river, right? If you have too few, or if the gap between them is too large, they're going to fall in the river and be washed downstream, never to be heard from again, right? They're not going to make it to a sale. So you have to make sure that your content is in the right order, but also that it's leading people from one place to another. Hey, Ellie, man, I got a nice active crew on the live today. Thank you so much for being here. So we want to make sure that when we get people into our email marketing funnel, we are giving them the information they need next to get closer to a sale, right? So when we think about the blog is usually, not always, usually the first step, right? They come to your website, maybe through social media, wherever, and they say, oh yes, I want what she's got. I'm going to get on her email list. So then they're in your email and you're going to deliver whatever that lead magnet was that got them on your list in the first place, right? So you're going to deliver that. I call that email zero. And Jamie can talk to this too. So Jamie Dubose is here, and she is the CEO of Zenplicity, and she does email marketing funnels for people. But so the delivery of your lead magnet is email zero in this example, okay? So that goes out as soon as they sign up. That's automatically triggered by your email software, and it just says something like, hey, here's this free thing that you asked for. Grab it now, download it, click this link, whatever they have to do to get it, right? So then what happens next? Ask yourself this. What happens next in your email? Do they just get dumped straight into your regular newsletter? Do they ever hear from you again? Because what we really want to have happen is for them to have some really good information about you so that they can make an informed decision later on about whether or not they're going to make a purchase, right? So I like to use a little technique I call the know, like, and trust sequence. So that's where we want to get started. So after email zero, where it's delivered your thing, they know they've got their free goodie and they're on your list. The next email you want to send is probably the next day. So we're going to call this email one on day one. And this is a know email. So that's KNOW. We are going to help them get to know who you are. So we're assuming that they came in from somewhere, whether it was Google or social media or whatever, and they don't really know you very well. Okay? So that first email in your welcome sequence is going to help them get to know you. Now this can be very similar to what you write on your about page, but in either situation, a no email or an about page, we want to give your bio from the angle of why they care. So, I could tell you guys whatever, that I grew up in Texas, that I went to film school, that I have a husband and a daughter and a rescue dog, that I don't know, like to cook, read books, sing in a choir. All those things are true. And you don't really care. I mean, maybe you care because you like me, but the people who are on your email list, right, brandy new, they don't even like you yet necessarily, right? So we want to tell the parts of your bio that are relevant to the person on the other end. So if I was going to give a no email about myself, hi Toral, how are you? I would want to say things that were about how I help, right? About me and how I help. So I'm a content strategist. I've been doing this for 8 years. I spent hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars teaching myself marketing, and found I had some very distinct opinions about it. And so started doing the content strategy on my own. So that would be the part of my bio that you care about, right? And so I also might drop in some names. Here's some people I've worked with. Here's some places I've been featured, etc. That's your getting to know you email. Okay. The second email, so that was email 1 on day 1. Email 2 goes out on day 2. So they're 2 days out from receiving your lead magnet. And it's a like email. So as I said just a second ago, they may not even like you yet, right? Because they don't even really know you. So we want to send an email that helps them get to like you more. And psychologically speaking, one way that people get to like you more is if you share something that's slightly embarrassing about yourself, or slightly self-deprecating, or if you tell a story of a time that you failed and redeemed yourself, right? So people want to know that you're human. So we're going to share a story of how human you are. So a fun example of this is, I don't even remember if this is still in my welcome sequence, but way early on, the second email in my welcome sequence was about how I once wrote a 100,000 word Harry Potter fan fiction longhand on yellow legal notepads at a really boring job. And you cannot imagine how many emails I got back saying like, oh, I love Harry Potter too, or I've had a terrible job like that, or don't let the muggles get you down. Like, I got all kinds of responses to that email because it humanized me, right? It told a slightly embarrassing story about 100,000 word Harry Potter fan fiction, and made people like me. But I also took it and massaged this story so that the angle was, when I did that, it taught me a whole lot about writing in other people's voices, right? I spent 100,000 words pretending to be J.K. Rowling, and that taught me a lot about how to write in somebody else's voice, which was how I kind of made it about my business. It wasn't just a random it is a little bit of a random story, but it wasn't totally out of the blue. So I took kind of a self-deprecating, a little bit embarrassing story and turned it to make it about my business. So you could tell a story, like let's say somebody was a health coach. They might tell a story about how they were once overweight or got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or whatever, couldn't run a mile. But then later on, they found this system that they now have, and now they're healthier. So those kinds of things, right? Okay, so that was email 2 on day 2. Email 3 goes out on day 3, and it's the trust email. So we're doing know, like, and trust. The trust email is where you give them something they're not expecting. So this could be another freebie. If you have some other freebies that you've created, other lead magnets, that's a really great thing to send. Something they weren't expecting but could use and is useful and happy to them. They're going to be like, wow, free stuff. I love it. If you don't have another lead magnet or don't want to muddy the waters, because sometimes we want, like our lead magnets sometimes help us segment our audience, so maybe we don't want to muddy that up. Another option would be to link to all your best material on your blog, right? So where would you recommend that they start reading on your blog? Where are people like unaware that there's all this great stuff in your back catalog if they just found you today, right? I got 7 years worth of blog posts that people can go back through, and there's a ton of good stuff, but how are they going to find it? They're not going to sit there and hit older post, right? So I could create a little directory, a little short reading list and say like, hey, if you're interested in this, click here. If you're interested in this, click here. That could be very cool. I know Jamie's brain is already going to like, yeah, and if they click on that, you know who they are and what they're interested in, and you can segment them in your email list. So So a freebie, a reading list of your best stuff or your best free stuff on your website. Another one is to give them some kind of discount or bonus. So notice that nowhere in this first 3 days have we made an ask yet, right? So we haven't actually said, hey, buy my thing. I think this is one place where people get a little too ask happy. I don't know what to say. They get too anxious and ambitious, and they will like talk about what they sell right after they've sent that first lead magnet. Yeah, that's like asking somebody to get married on the first date. We got to warm it up a little bit. Take me to dinner first, right? So that's a really good way to like give them something they're excited about, is to give them a coupon code or a bonus or something like that in the trust email. With my clients that sell physical products, this has worked really well. So if they sell something where it's like a physical, actual thing that they can get in the mail, they're more likely to have a shorter sales cycle, right? There's less persuading and educating that needs to happen between when they sign up for the email list and when they make a purchase. So some kind of bonus or coupon or something like that works exceptionally well when you have product-based business. But it can also work with a service-based business, because a lot of times if you have an evergreen offer, people need an excuse or a reason to make a purchase. So just as an example, I offer content services, content strategy and writing, right? You might need that, but it's not like an urgent need, like, hey, my pipe's broke and I need a plumber yesterday to fix it. You know, it's not an urgent need like I'm sick and I need medicine. It's a, wow, that would be nice. Yeah, someday I would really like to have that. You can't imagine how often I hear that, right? So if I were to put an offer or a bonus or some kind of time limited thing in my third email, in my trust email, that can help people get off the fence and make a decision to make a purchase, right? So I might say something like, hey, as you know, I do content strategy. And if you reply to this email and get on a phone call with me in the next 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever, I'll throw in an extra, whatever, I don't know, something. But I could put a bonus and a time limiter in that email, but then it's like, oh, she's giving me extra stuff. The other way you can do a trust email that's a little bit different is to let other people give their trust. I'm not saying this well. Let other people be give you the testimonial that will create the trust. So this is more like crowdsourcing the trust, right? So if I wanted to, my trust email could be more like, it says my stream quality has been lowered, so I'm sorry if I'm fuzzy. If I wanted my trust email, could be more like, hey, here are 4 podcasts I've been on. So these people, what I'm really saying is these people all thought I was enough of an expert to have me on their podcast. Or it could be, here's a testimonial from one of my best clients. Or something I've been experimenting with is I have a case study document now. So I could send out, here are some case studies of how we have helped people in the past. And all of those things go to giving me credibility and building up trust with this new person, right? They're going to say, oh, well, these other people think she's awesome. She must be awesome. So once we've gone through, so that's actually 4 total emails, right? Because remember, this is backwards. It's throwing me off. The first one was day 0, when you deliver your lead magnet, when they first join your list. Day 1 was your welcome, was your get to know me email. Day 2 was your get to like me email. Day 3 is to get to trust me email, right? And then once they've gone through that sequence, you have 2 options. Where am I at? So your 5th email after trust could be the ask. So it's know, like, trust, ask. That could be where you actually make a pitch and say like, hey, you can get on my waiting list for my course. You can book a call to get on my service. You can buy my product. That's the ask. And it's basically a sales letter or your sales page put in an email form. The other thing you can do if you don't want to make an ask at that point, you can go ahead and put them into your normal email newsletter funnel at that point. Because at that point, they know you well enough that if you just send them your weekly email, they're going to be like, oh yeah, I want to read that. Otherwise, if you are just giving them the lead magnet and then drop them into the middle of whatever you're already talking about, they may be lost, right? They may need a warm up before they get into your newsletter sequence. So either way, now you've spent some time getting them to know, like, and trust you, and you are more likely to get a positive response when you make your ask. Cool? So my 15 minutes are up. I hope that has been helpful. If you have questions, I'll hang out for another minute or so if you guys have any questions, since there's quite a few of you on the broadcast right now. But if you're watching this in the replay, you can also leave a question in the comment box below and just tag me to make sure I see it, and I'm happy to come back and answer questions. Also, this week's topic was brought to you by Ellie, who requested information about email sequences. So if you have topics you would like to see me cover in a future content debrief, please be sure and ask me, because that's how I know what you guys want to see more of. And clearly this was a very popular topic because a lot of people showed up. But if you have any questions about that welcome sequence that people get in right when they join your email list, now is the time to ask. Karen. Hi, Karen. And she says, I never thought about it that way. Dropping them into the newsletter could be confusing. Yeah, it can be, depending on what your newsletter is doing for you, right? So sometimes, especially if we have a very, a very plotted out content calendar, we can be sort of in the middle of a launch, not a launch, but in the middle of a sales cycle when somebody joins our list, right? Because people could join our list at any point. So if you're in the middle of like a 3 or 4 blog post sequence, they could be totally lost and be like, I don't know what this is about. Or sometimes because we know it, we assume that our people are super familiar with all the terminology we use and all the stuff we're talking about. So it can be a nice little way to warm them up, to give them that little ramp up before we drop them into the newsletter. Karen's written a book. And so Karen, you could actually talk about in your welcome sequence, like that you have a book in case people haven't bought it yet, or sort of like maybe like a really high level outline of what the points are that you talk about. And then you drop people into the newsletter, because then they have some context, right? And for Karen, you might even give your personal story about why you wrote the book. That might be your email, so that people understand that you're just like they are and you went through some of the same struggles. So that can be a really good way to sort of warm them up to you before you put them in the newsletter. The other thing to think about there is that a lot of times my clients have launches happening. And so if somebody comes in and then all of a sudden gets inundated with sales emails because they happen to come in during a launch, they're going to be very turned off, right? So this is one of those little buffer zones we put in so that they're not totally turned off. If they happen to jump in the middle of a sale or a launch, they're not going to be totally turned off by like the volume of sales emails they're getting, right? So it's just a good little buffer zone to build into your emails list so that people are warmed up before you make an ask. Okay, I am definitely over my 15-minute time now, so I'm going to say goodbye. But remember, I am here, same bat time, same bat channel every week, Tuesdays at noon Mountain Time, which is 11 a.m. Pacific and 2 p.m. Eastern. And I hope this is helpful. Feel free to give me a like or a comment or a question in the box below, even if you're watching this in the replay, and I'll catch you next week.